How about Jimmy Hyams and Tony Vitello on the program today? Caleb, you say when to hit it.
Let's roll. Let's hit it.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Well, a lot to get to on the program today, where fandom can go a little bit too far as it pertains to Nico Iamaleava. Also, Tony Vitello, the national championship winning baseball coach, will join us. We always look forward to visiting with him, and I look forward to his comments from time to time, because I think by the nature of the sport, you're able to be more forthright. And I've said this about basketball coaches as well. There's less of a hunkered down mentality as opposed to some other situations. So we've got a lot to get to on the program today. Also, listen, I got to see more from Tennessee's wide receivers, and in particular, Mike Matthews is one that I know that you're wondering about. Why has he not played more? Hasn't had a catch since the Kent State game. So we'll get into that as well. A lot going on the program. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll visit with Jimmy Hyams here momentarily. Again, Tony Vitello scheduled to join us later in the program. So give us a thumbs up. Give us any questions you might want us to ask of Tony Vitello. As Caleb, one day closer to Kentucky and one day closer to November. How are you, sir?
I am good. Also, one day closer to Halloween. Dave, I thought about dressing up as Aaron Judge for Halloween and just not showing up tomorrow.
That's not a bad idea. That would be pretty accurate. It's like, where's Caleb? He's dressed like Aaron Judge somewhere. You do have young Quincy. This will be his first. This will be his first Halloween at 4 months old. So, are you guys going to do or dress him up as anything in particular?
We are dressing him and our dog up in the same outfit. I'm not a big fan of dressing dogs, but I lost that battle with my wife. So
super weird to dress up a dog, in my opinion. It says something about you, and I'm not sure that it's good.
Our dog's not even a little dog. He's a big dog. He's an outdoor, run around, jump in water. This is
it like what's he wearing? Like a sweater?
No, he's wearing a bumblebee outfit. And so
that's terrible. That's terrible. What happens if he gets away from you? And then, you're down in the alleys. You're in the dark parts of town, and he's dressed up as a bumblebee. What are those other dogs going to do to him? They're going to beat the bumble right out of that.
Well, we're not leaving the house for Halloween tomorrow. Quincy's way too young.
I would hope not if your dog's going to be dressed like a bumblebee, because some stray dog would come along and say, "Hey there, hey bumblebee, you're looking a little soft," and then suddenly you don't have a dog anymore. I mean, that's just common sense. That's why I will not let my wife put a sweater on my dog, because what if he gets free? Then other dogs are going to pick on him about the sweater.
Dave's concepts of criminals are straight out of 80s movies of for those grimy New York scenes, the accents you do.
I'm the guy who can watch Goodfellas over and over and over.
Yes, you still think the criminal scene is the mafia scene of the 50s, right?
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. All right, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. banksandjones.com. We already have a poll question up. As Caleb, can you address that? And then we will explain it as the show goes on.
Yes. So the poll question, and many of you may disagree with me on this, but
I don't want your stance yet. I just want the poll question. I want to know
Okay.
where our listeners stand.
Well, you guys may disagree with my framing of the question, is what I meant to say, that this should even be a question. And so what the question is, does Tennessee have to beat Georgia to get into the college football playoff? Yes, Vols' schedule is bad, 52%. No, Vols are from the SEC, 48%.
Okay. So without giving it away, because we're going to talk to Jimmy Hyams about this here momentarily, what is your initial take?
My initial take is there's a balancing act between the TV show of the college football playoff and the actual resume of Tennessee relative to other programs that could be going to 10-2.
I'm just going to stick by what I've originally said, and that on surface value, 10-2 is good enough for me. In the SEC, 10-2 really is not good enough in the Big Ten on face value. It depends how things shake out. But 10-2 in the SEC is good enough. I was visiting with our good friend Kyle at Double D Piping. They are your go-to for all your fire suppression needs. And yeah, I was talking with him. I don't think there's an elite team in the SEC this year. I think there's about 5 very good teams. I think Tennessee is one of those. Maybe that's a discussion for another day. Portions of the program brought to you by Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service, automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. Tell Bo that Dave Hooker and Off the Hook Sports said hello, as they'll take care of you at Quality Tire Pros there in Chattanooga. And it is Halloween tomorrow, so I'm curious with Jimmy Hyams, who's nice enough to join us, brought to you by our friends at Varner Ford. Jimmy, how are you, sir?
Dave, I'm doing great. Hope you are as well.
I am, and you sound better. I know that you're a little raspy with the sinus infection, and goodness knows I can empathize there. Is grandson Orion going to dress up for Halloween, and what will he be?
He is going to dress up for Halloween. He's going to be, I'm trying to remember, my daughter mentioned it. He's going to dress up like one of those scary creatures from a Halloween movie.
Okay. Caleb is going to dress up his dog. Do you think that's weird?
I'm not choosing to. My wife wants to, and it's not a battle I don't want to fight. It's not a battle I want to fight.
Jimmy, you seem like a guy who listens to reason, but sometimes the man has to lay down the law, right?
Sometimes, but this is not a battle you want to fight.
Thank you. True. My mother always told me, pick your battles.
That's right.
And this is just not, this is one I can lose, and I'll have it in my back pocket for the future. Because then when we have another fight, I can be like, well, hey, I let Sirius wear the stupid costume you put on him. Yeah. That's how I win our next argument.
Sirius is the name of his very stern dog. Today's tough question is now, and it's brought to you by our good friends at Banks & Jones, T. Scott Jones. Other attorneys say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, Jimmy, what is the likelihood that Tennessee misses the college football playoff at 10-2 in your mind? Because I said right before you came on, in face value, a 10-2 team should be one of the top 12 teams in the nation. But we know about the automatic bids. We know that Tennessee's schedule is nothing to brag about. So what are your thoughts on Vols 10-2? Do they make it?
I think it's less than 50% that they would not make it. Okay. So I'm saying it's better than 50% that they will. And the reason I say that is I just don't know how many 10-2 teams are going to be out there. I don't know how Tennessee's strength of schedule is going to stack up against the rest of the field. But here's another thought too. If Tennessee's 10-2, and they beat Georgia but lose to Vanderbilt, I think that enhances their chances, because then you beat Alabama and you beat Georgia. And if you beat Georgia, well, if you lose to Vanderbilt, you're probably not playing for the SEC championship. But if you beat the number one ranked team in the country and you beat Alabama, which has been ranked in the top 10 most of the year, I think that's stronger than losing to Vanderbilt and Arkansas. Now, I don't know how the committee would look at it, but I would give you props for that. And by the way, Vanderbilt's pretty good. So, but at 10-2, I don't think it's a guarantee, but I think it's a probability.
Okay, so Jimmy, let me ask you, thinking about that, let's say Tennessee goes chalk, which is losing to Georgia but beating everybody else. And for the record, on throwing the hypotheticals out, I'm kind of with you. I think it's insane to assume that the rest of the season is going to be chalk when it hasn't been chalk to this point. But let's say Tennessee does. And say hypothetically Alabama just collapses in November, which is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And they finish 8-4. Don't you think that puts Tennessee in how much trouble do you think that puts Tennessee in then when their best win is against an 8-4 Alabama team?
I think it puts them in more trouble. And the thing that's hard to do, Caleb, is comparing them to everybody else, because we don't know. Is Penn State going to go 10-2? Is Ohio State going to go 10-2? Indiana's undefeated. Are they going to go 10-2? I don't know everybody's strength of schedule right now. And sometimes when I look at the strength of schedules, they're giving you the strength of schedule up to this date. And so they don't always factor in the last 5 or so games of the season. So it's hard to compute that. But I would say it would hurt Tennessee's chances if Alabama ends up 8-4, and that's the best win you've got this season.
Okay, something that was brought up on our message board, and this to me, it would be a no-brainer if not for what happened in 2022. And that is there a chance Alabama, let's say they right the ship and they go 10-2. Is there any way that they could make it over a 10-2 Tennessee team that beat Alabama? That sounds absurd, but in 2022, we know Alabama was ranked ahead of Tennessee despite the head-to-head.
Is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? I'm going to say probably not. Alabama's going to get some credit, even though Wisconsin's not great, but they're going to get some credit for going to Wisconsin and getting a win. That would be better than any non-conference win Tennessee has. So that would help Alabama. Alabama also beat Georgia. So that's another feather in Alabama's cap. So without knowing what everybody on the committee is thinking, is there a chance? Yes. Now, obviously, you can point to a year ago. Texas beat Alabama head-to-head. They beat Alabama at Alabama, and Texas was seated ahead of Alabama in the playoffs. And I thought that was the right thing to do. I would have trouble, and I think the committee is going to have trouble, because I think they do put a lot of stock in head-to-head. So because I think they put a lot of stock in that, I think Tennessee would be ranked ahead of Alabama, but I guess I wouldn't be shocked if Alabama's ahead of Tennessee.
Here would be my reasoning why that wouldn't happen now and would happen then, or did happen then, is that Alabama had the Nick Saban thing, and let's face it, him being in the playoffs, it is a television show, as I like to remind Caleb a lot, and having a star like Jack Nicholson or Nick Saban in that is a factor. And Alabama had the panache as well, but I don't think they necessarily have that anymore, Jim.
No, I don't think so either. Without Saban, I'm trying to remember a year when Alabama got in just because of Saban. Do you remember a year like that?
No, but I think that would have happened in 2022. I think shooken out.
Okay.
I mean, can you say the rematch in 2011 with LSU? Does anybody other than Saban get that shot at a rematch? I mean, I'm not saying that Alabama didn't deserve it, but that's. I think if you flip the coaches, Mike Gundy and Nick Saban, I think Oklahoma State's in the national championship game despite that Iowa State loss in 2011 to go play LSU.
Okay, so that would be an example. Yeah. But to your question, Dave, Alabama doesn't carry the weight that it did when Saban was there, I wouldn't think. And I just, without knowing the committee's mindset, I don't know how much it would play into it, but it's certainly possible. I'd say this: if Alabama is ranked ahead of Tennessee, and both of them are 10-2, and Tennessee beat Alabama head-to-head, then that theory wouldn't hold, would it?
No. And go ahead, Caleb.
Sorry, there's another factor to this, though. And I'm going to go ahead and state the blasphemous on the show. But if they both go 10-2, even though Tennessee gets a head-to-head over Alabama, isn't there an argument that that the gap in quality wins for Alabama should still have them outweigh Tennessee's? Because Tennessee will have the Alabama win. Jimmy, you brought up Alabama will have the Wisconsin.
No, it's
hold on. Let me finish. You brought up Alabama has the Wisconsin win and the Georgia win in their cap. If they finish 10-2, they'll also have a win at LSU in their cap at that point. And you guys can hate on this all day, but if Vegas gets it right, Missouri's going to finish the year 10-2. That's a quality win. So Alabama's got 4 quality wins. At least 2 of them are better than, and Tennessee's got 1 at that point. If they both go 10-2, it's 4-1 in quality wins. At that point, you have to make the case that outweighs head-to-head.
No,
and they very well might.
I mean, you
Jimmy,
can hate that, Dave,
but Jimmy, if you're on that committee, and by the way, I looked at the committee members. You deserve to be on that committee more than at least 9 of those people. And that's no exaggeration. Out of 12, I mean, a couple of people I didn't even know. But Jimmy, if you were on the committee, what would outweigh it, head-to-head or strength of schedule?
Okay, if the strength of schedule for Alabama is 10th in the country and Tennessee's strength of schedule is 60, I'm taking Alabama. Yeah. If the strength of schedule for Alabama is 30 and Tennessee's 35, I'll take Tennessee. So it depends on the difference of the strength of schedules. Because if Alabama has 4 quality wins and Tennessee has 1, I would lean toward Alabama.
Particularly when Tennessee's win over Alabama was in Knoxville.
Right. Okay. But okay. If that's the case, you've got to, in my opinion, I don't want to go overboard on this thing, but I think you've got to write in rules that a head-to-head trumps. I mean, they've got that in the SEC championship game qualification rules. Head-to-head would trump. I mean, Trump on near election day, but you have got to have that in there, in my opinion, Jimmy. I mean, I respect where you're coming from, that the strength of schedule, if it was vastly different, which it may end up being, would be significant. I just can't go so far as to take away the head-to-head, and I wonder if that's something that the College Football Playoff Committee would look at, or if they like having control to get the best television show on TV.
I don't know the answer to that, but they do weigh heavily head-to-head, but they also weigh heavily strength of schedule. So I think it would be an interesting proposition for them. Here's the thing. Tennessee doesn't want to be in that position. They might be, but they would like to take any doubt away, and they control their destiny. If they win out, there's no doubt. If they go 10-2, there is going to be some doubt about whether they get in. Again, I think if they're 10-2, they're going to get in, probably, which means better than 50-50. But I would not want it. It's almost like leaving a call up to an official on pass interference.
Oh, yeah.
I do not want an official deciding whether that was or wasn't pass interference.
Or leaving up a Hail Mary to the Chicago Bears defensive backs.
Yeah.
Jimmy's appearance is brought to you by Ray Varner Ford. Varner Ford in Clinton, a very short drive. We love Ray Varner Ford.
XLT all-wheel drive, $31,990. 23 Ford Expedition 4x4 Limited, $66,590. 2023 Ford F-150 XLT Super Crew 4x4, $47,995. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
All right, Caleb, I know you had one more on this topic. What do you got? Because we're going to move forward here.
Yeah, so Jimmy, and guys, I just wanted to throw this out on the scenario and why this is trouble for Tennessee. There's Georgia, Texas, and Texas A&M could all get into the playoff over Tennessee because they could all theoretically finish 11-1 to 10-2. That's from the SEC. From the Big Ten, you're looking at Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. I haven't even brought up Indiana yet because their schedule's pretty bad too. But let's just take Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State. You also have Notre Dame that, as an independent, right now is on track to get into the playoff. And the reason I think this is scary for Tennessee, guys, is that's 7 teams right there I just named that could finish 10-2 or better. And the Big 12 and the ACC champions are automatically going. And Jimmy, I would just want to add, the way things have shaken out in those two conferences, you might end up getting 2 Big 12 and 2 ACC teams. And I just put the number of playoff teams at 11, and there's only 11 spots available for Power 4 teams. I want to know your thoughts on that.
It narrows the gap, doesn't it? It casts more doubt if you're 10-2. And I think there's a very good chance the Big Ten is going to get 3 teams in, including the conference champion. The ACC is going to get 2 in. I think Miami and Clemson are going to be in. And that narrows the field for the SEC. I have felt for a while the SEC would get 5 teams in, but I'm not overly confident about that because there are going to be some other teams fighting for it. And I do think there'll be multiple 10-2 teams that are going to be battling for this spot. So, and then you get to this thing that's called style points. And I know that I've been told this, that the committee, once it's the margin's above 27 points, they ignore it. It doesn't matter if you win by 27 or 57. They ignore it. So if you got a 40-point lead, there's no sense in scoring another touchdown because the committee doesn't pay attention to it. I wouldn't, if I was on the committee, pay attention to you adding on a touchdown so that you win by 47 instead of 40. But I will be curious to see how many teams tack on a late touchdown in an effort to get, quote, style points in this race for the playoff.
Or, I don't know, how about an onside kick?
Yeah.
I mean, that's there's the other side of style points, though, which is the politics of this, which is that ESPN has the contract with the SEC and that Tennessee is a big draw. And, you know, if it's down to like Tennessee and Indiana, for instance, and it's a tough battle, even if Indiana technically has a better resume, come on, they're going to take Tennessee guys, right?
just for the record, Jimmy asked the question of Nico Iamaleava after the game, and which was it, the Florida game that they went for it on their own end, Jimmy?
Yes.
Okay. You asked the question, and he didn't remember the play, and he said, "Did we get it?" And Jimmy was nice enough to say, "Well, according to my notes, you got it. So congratulations." And Jimmy, my question is, the more surprising of the two plays. The onside kick, was that against Kent State?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Onside kick against Kent State, or Tennessee going for it on their own, I believe, 10-yard line.
I think going for it on your own 10 because there was more at stake.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything at stake on an onside kick. That was just a silly play. But boy, that's a roll of the dice going for it on your own 10-yard line. So to me, that was more surprising because the game was on the line.
Yeah. So Caleb and I, we have discussions at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting every morning, Jimmy, and I'm sure you believe that time. But we also occasionally Caleb will say something like, "Hey, I'm dressing up my dog for Halloween," where I got to say, "What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
So in addition to Caleb dressing up his dog for Halloween as a bumblebee, Caleb also said, somewhat in passing, this team is better suited to win in November than one I can remember. And I didn't mean for that to rhyme. But, Jimmy, what do you make of this team and the way it's built in terms of winning in November and setting themselves up for a college football playoff spot and maybe even a really good one?
I think they are set up to have a really good November. Typically, defense travels. And so when you go on the road, your defense is typically going to play well. Offensively, they've been up and down. I have been encouraged by that second half against Alabama. It seemed like Nico found himself a little bit. The offense found itself. You ended up having 0 points in the first half, but then 24, in the second half. So I saw a spark in the offense. I saw Nico playing better after he got waylaid. Looked like he came out of the game for a play when he was hurt. I think he's going to play better in the second half. I think the defense will continue to rank among the nation's best. I like Tennessee's running attack. They lead the SEC in rushing. That's another thing that typically travels. So I think Tennessee is going to have a very strong November.
Jimmy, I'll compare it to 2022 as well, when Tennessee was in the hunt for a 4-team college football playoff. I didn't think defensively they could get much better. I just thought they were limited in personnel. I could see, I mean, the defense is elite this year. I could see the offensive passing game clicking and kind of finding their rhythm more so than I could have ever seen that group in 2022 play defense.
Yeah, I think so. The 2022 defense was limited, and they gave up. I mean, the South Carolina game was an abomination, but they gave up points and yards to other teams as well. If I'm not mistaken, Florida had over 500 yards against Tennessee, and Tennessee won after when Florida got an onside kick late and then was trying to throw it in the end zone. But yeah, I agree with that. I think this the Tennessee passing attack they look good early against non-competitive teams, but then they look good against Alabama in the second half. And that's the thing that I think will carry over. I've mentioned many times that Nico's not a finished product. I think he'll get better and better. I think he'll get better and better toward the end of this season. And so I do think the passing attack has a better chance of showing significant improvement versus the defense of 2022.
So, Jimmy, and the reason I brought this up is, I talked about the defensive line and the depth, and I totally agree with you. One of my theories in football is that X's and O's versus Jimmy's and Joe's, everybody always talks about that. X's and O's has more weight and power in September, but Jimmy's and Joe's start to carry more and more weight as the season goes on, and particularly when you get into November, and Tennessee has those. The other theory I have, and I want you guys to both jump in on this. I'll start with you, Jimmy, but Dave, you've covered a lot of teams. My brother brought this up to me recently, of all people. Isn't it true that if you have a good defense at the beginning of the year, you're going to have a good defense? The offense can get better. So wouldn't you rather start the year with a good defense and a bad offense, knowing the offense can get better? Because isn't it true that if you start with a good offense and a bad defense, you don't really see a defense improve as the season goes on?
Yeah, that's a good theory. I think there's something to that. Of course, there are exceptions, but I think in general, you would rather start with a really good defense. One of the keys to that whole equation is the injury situation. And Tennessee on defense, they've got pretty darn good depth, in particular on the defensive line. They don't have depth, in my opinion, on the offensive line. Their depth at receiver is a little bit questionable to me. But I think that's true, that typically a team offensively will get better as the season goes on. But if you're bad on defense early, you're typically going to be bad the whole year.
No, I agree with that. You mentioned the receivers. We were led to believe they were going to be as deep as the defensive line. I don't think that's proven to be the case.
Nope.
No. Chaz Nimrod's a big drop-off. The Tennessee receivers, if you want to say Brew McCoy with the finger/hand, if you want to say Squirrel White with the shoulder, Dante Thornton left the game early with a lowered leg. That to me is the key for a strong run in November. What would you pick as the key for a strong run in November?
Well, it would be the passing game. And so you could attribute that to the receivers. You could attribute that to Nico being more accurate, making the right decision, throwing it to the right people. I mean, he had one play. Now, he overthrew some passes against Alabama, but at one point, Nimrod's defender fell down. Nimrod's wide open, and Nico threw it to – who did he throw it to? Chris Brazzell. Mm-hmm. And there's nobody on Nimrod. He's got to see the field better in that regard. He's got to make sure that he hits the open receiver and finds the open receiver. But I think it's a combination of that. But I think, to me, it starts with the receivers. The receivers have got to do a good job. They can't drop passes. They got to get open. They got to get separation. They got to be on the same page with the quarterback, and Nico's got to hit them. But that, to me, will define whether or not Tennessee makes a significant run and finishes on a high note in November.
Yep, I agree with all that you just said. Caleb?
Yeah, and I know the old Johnny Majors saying they remember what you do in November. That was very easy for Johnny Majors and Philip Fulmer to say when they were playing Vanderbilt in Kentucky every year. So that's one of the stupidest stats in history is when people talk about how great Tennessee's been in November. But Jimmy, I do want to ask too, let's take it beyond November into December and January when you talk college football playoff. That even favors Tennessee more, right? Because the deeper and deeper you go and the colder and colder it gets, the more a defensive line is an advantage, isn't it?
A defensive line's an advantage, a run game's an advantage. So those two things, yes. So I think that does play into Tennessee's hands. And gosh, Tennessee's defensive line goes 12 deep. I've mentioned this before. They have had better starters on the defensive line with no one draft picks. They have never been this deep on the defensive line in the 40 years I've covered them. So that's a big advantage. Dylan Sampson is a big advantage. He's the best running back in the SEC, one of the best running backs in the country. And so I think that's also helpful. And you're gonna probably have some, unless you're playing in a dome, you're gonna have some bad weather games along the way during the playoffs. So I think that's important to have a great defense and a really good run game.
Jimmy, let me ask you this: as a Heisman voter, and I think you're over all the voters in Tennessee, but why has Dylan Sampson not gotten more talk of about the Heisman? I'm not saying he should necessarily go to New York or even win it, but it just seems like he's been conspicuously absent in the conversation.
Yeah, I don't know the reason for that. He should be in that conversation. I know that you got a running back at Boise State that's lighting it up, and he deserves to be get consideration. Right now, he deserves to be in New York. But when you start looking at other prospects, give me another running back that's been better than Dylan Sampson. There's a guy at Iowa that's having a great year, Caleb Johnson. Other than that,
Ashton Genty, who's having a historic.
No, that's what I meant. That's what I was talking about.
Oh, okay, sorry.
First I was referring to. Yeah, I just didn't mention his name. I said his school. Sorry. But then look at the quarterbacks. I mean, it was Milroe for a little while, and then he's faded off. Carson Beck for a little while, he's faded off. Quinn Ewers, he got hurt, came back, hadn't played as well. To me, the best quarterback probably is Cam Ward at Miami. Okay?
Probably.
Yeah, I think he's the
Dylan Gabriel at Oregon. Those two are probably the two best quarterbacks. And Sampson, to me, there's not a wide receiver I would put in that category. To me, Dylan Sampson should be in about the top 6 on the Heisman list. Why he's not, I don't know. He should be. And certainly he would get strong consideration on my ballot.
Jimmy, great stuff as always. How do we follow your work?
Well, on Off the Hook.
Yeah,
you can do it there. And we're writing, trying to write a couple of columns a week for you. Also, we're doing the podcast. Our most recent one, we're going to do one. I happened at the Quarterback Club to interview Omar Norman Lott and Will Brooks. So we're going to do that as one of our podcasts. Then I interviewed Daryl Dickey, who told me a story I'd never heard, probably should have known it. I knew he was a 6-year player. I didn't know why. I knew he was 24 years old. I didn't know why he was there that long. He was involved in a tackling drill in 1980 when he came as a freshman, broke his leg in a tackling drill, and then withdrew they hadn't started school, so he did not enroll in school. And that allowed him to be a 6-year player. Otherwise, if he hadn't broken his leg, he'd have never been on the 1985 team and never helped them win the Sugar Bowl.
That's a great story. And for those that don't know, when you enroll in school is when your clock starts.
Yes.
So, but practice, preseason camp will begin before that. And then I know this weird rule because of a guy named Lane Kiffin that if you spend the night on campus, do you remember that rule when he left, that if you spend the night, you're then tied to your scholarship if you spend the night on campus?
I didn't. Is that really a rule, or is that
really is a rule?
I thought Dave was going somewhere else with a Lane Kiffin rule about spending the night, and I didn't want to know what he was referring to.
You spend the night with a Lane Kiffin, you probably should go to the doctor and get checked out. All right, Jimmy, we appreciate you as always. Have a blessed day, sir.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you, Jimmy Hyams. Random shot at Lane Kiffin. Why'd I do that? Tony Vitello coming up. Hit that thumbs up button, please. If you're not subscribed, please do that. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
I've been in business actually 19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2024 Ford Maverick XLT all-wheel drive, $31,990. 23 Ford Expedition 4x4 Limited, $66,590. 2023 Ford F-150 XLT Super Crew 4x4, $47,995. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Varner Ford, built for the game.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
downs. A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Tony Vitello is scheduled to join us very shortly, but we're going to dive into this topic before the coach of the national championship Vols jumps on board, and it has to do with Tennessee's wide receivers. Are they misusing them? 4 downs brought to you by our good friend Medicare Misty. Cooper, what should people do that want to follow the program? Oh, they shouldn't do that. Let's try again, as they should do this.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
What down, Coop?
Coop here. First down.
Where's Mike Matthews? Where is Mike Matthews? I wrote about that today on Off the Hook Sports. If he doesn't have an impact this week, I'm going to be disappointed in Tennessee's coaching staff. I'm not a guy that gets all on board just because a guy is highly touted in recruiting, but he was that a 5-star by ESPN, a 4-star by most everybody else. And he did play and has played quite a few times, quite a few plays over the past couple of weeks, but there doesn't seem anything to be designed to get the ball to him. And he hasn't caught a pass since the Kent State game in which he had 2 catches and a touchdown. Caleb, how troublesome is the lack of getting Mike Matthews involved?
You know, I actually, I predicted he'd be he'd take a starting wideout role opposite Brew McCoy earlier this year, and that just never materialized. I don't think it's as disturbing as you think, because I think Josh Heupel has a level of arrogance about him where he plays seniority with players he picked. So in his mind, he's like, I picked these other wideouts. Obviously, they're better right now because they're more experienced in my system. So I'm going to go with them for right now, even though I do believe in Mike Matthews long term. That's probably what Josh Heupel's thinking. And the other part, I think they spent a little bit of extra time trying to develop a rapport with a specific set of more veteran receivers with Tennessee, and it has come at the expense of Mike Matthews.
Okay, but that's what they've done the entire time that Josh Heupel's been at Tennessee. I mean, we were told in the offseason that and I got questioned about this on Facebook. Well, you just have to trust what they say, and practices aren't open. And I'm not knocking the fact that practices aren't open. They're not open anywhere. But we were sold a bill of goods that Chaz Nimrod was much better, and he looks much the same. And we were sold that Mike Matthews would have an early impact. Now, I want to defend a couple of the guys, in particular Squirrel White and Brew McCoy with the injuries, but I just don't think Tennessee's done a very good job of getting that second group of receivers in there. And I could include Chris Brazel in there as well. There's a guy that's just custom made to say jump ball time. I mean, he doesn't need to learn the entire offense to have an impact.
No, he doesn't. But I think they've again some of this we have to question about Nico and who is he delivering the ball to. But I think that Mike Matthews will get involved. It could just be he didn't get enough first team reps in the offseason because of all the other receivers.
Yes.
Cooper Mays here, second down.
All right. Why did they take so long to get Brew McCoy involved?
Yeah, and for context here, guys, Brew McCoy had 6 catches for 80 yards against Alabama, and he had 0 catches against Florida. And it was weird to me because the thing that's funny, Dave, is you don't have to rely on Brew for big play dimes down the sideline. Give Brew the ball on a 10-yard hitch route, and he'll break 15 tackles and get 25 more yards out of it. A lot of times, he's the most physical receiver I've ever seen. The only thing I could come up with is maybe he just wasn't fully fresh coming off the injury throughout the first part of the season, and maybe they're working him in more now.
Well, that, and he's had the hand issue. I think that's why he dropped the touchdown pass against Alabama. So I think for a receiver, a hand issue is much more significant. It's open enrollment wherever you're watching Medicare Misty. Before we get to third down, remind you that she's licensed in over 40 states and can help you, no charge for her services.
19 years this year. Well, I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here, third down.
How has Squirrel White and his bad shoulder impacted Tennessee's development and or plans at wide receiver? I'm going to start first. A lot. And I will go back to Mike Matthews. I would hope in the off week, and I know they like to get a guy prepared at wide out or slot, and typically they don't go back and forth. They do some. But if Mike Matthews hasn't seen time with the slot, with what's going on with Squirrel shoulder, I would be very disappointed. To me, he deserves practice reps there. He deserves a shot there because he's that athletic, and Squirrel is that hurt that I'm not even sure he should be on the field.
Yeah, Mike Matthews also has the speed too. So you're right. And we know the question is does Mike Matthews have that Dante Thornton effect where he just feels out of place in the slot and is not comfortable? At which point do you go to Braylon Staley, the 4-star out of South Carolina? Are they trying to save a redshirt for Braylon Staley, which could be possible? But you're right. I think Squirrel White's shoulder has actually been way more impactful than we're thinking because it hasn't dictated it hasn't affected how the defense covers a lot of times. It hasn't spread the field the way it needs to. He hasn't been able to. And also, I think some of Nico's incompletions, Dave, I think he misjudged Squirrel White's speed because I don't think Squirrel White's running as fast as he can or is able to run as fast as he can. I know it's a shoulder injury, but that can still affect your speed. I think Nico's misjudging that a little bit from what he worked on in practice.
It can affect your speed and the way you run. There's no question about that. What down, Coop?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here, fourth down.
Are any wide receivers seeing too much playing time? Pardon me, it's Squirrel. And I feel for Squirrel to some extent because I believe that, and I've said this before, college football has been elevated. And part of that's because of NIL. Players realize that if they ball out on Saturday, it could affect their checkbook. And there's not the resentment from the amateur athletes that are bringing in cajillions of dollars. And I think Squirrel, as a junior, is probably thinking, and it was well discussed before the season, how he has a young one now. To me, I think that Squirrel is thinking about the here and now, where I think somebody needs to pull him aside and say, listen, trust me, when you start to have a bad shoulder, you can have a bad shoulder the rest of your life. And I'm just surprised to see him. I've been surprised to see him as much on the field as he is with a bad shoulder.
I'm kind of shocked too, particularly when Tennessee has options elsewhere. Squirrel's not the only one they're playing too much, though. Dave, they're Is it safe to say they're playing Chaz Nimrod too much now at this point?
Well, yes, but they had to learn that during a game, and he had the drop when he was wide open over the middle. You might help me with the game there. Was that I think that was the Arkansas loss. Sure,
he just doesn't get separation either.
Yeah,
I think that's the big. I mean, this whole offense is. I got to go back. I watched some Hooker highlights against Kentucky yesterday because we were watching some highlights from the 2022 game, and Wes Rucker had a point. It's almost comical how easily Jalen Hyatt just beat their secondary and got open down the field. I don't know if you'll ever see that again, will you, with this offense? Is that even possible to see that regularly?
Yeah, but what's he – okay, but in all fairness, I know he's fast, but what's he done in the NFL?
Nothing, because Cedric Tillman's better, who had a touchdown on Sunday. But part of that clearly they did something to adjust to that scheme. You're not seeing there were about 10 times a game where Hooker just had a bare receiver down the sideline. I don't, and I never understood how that happened.
No,
I think that's just been an issue now, and they haven't figured out how to address it.
Scheduled to have Tony Vitello up next. I remind you, TristarHatsCo.com, TristarHatsCo.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. Hooked for 10% off.
TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co. What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TristarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TristarHatsCo.com. That's TristarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TristarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TristarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Coming up on the program this day in Tennessee sports history, stat of the day is Dylan Sampson better than Ashton Jeanty, the running back at Boise State, who might just slip up and win the Heisman this year. Also, Nico Iamaleava's dad gets into an X war or a Twitter war. That to me is very frustrating. Let's get to the stat of the day now, Caleb, if you can go ahead and throw that out there, and I'm going to go ahead and bring Mr. Tony Vitello on board.
When's the last time Tennessee lost to Kentucky in the same season that they beat Florida? Somebody just throw out a year.
Give it to me again.
The last time Tennessee lost to Kentucky in the same year that they beat Florida.
I don't know. What year would that be?
1955.
1955?
Yes. 1955. Bowden Wyatt's first year. Johnny Major's junior year. 1955, they beat Florida, but lost to Kentucky. Tennessee does not lose to there's this whole thing where we know Tennessee doesn't lose to Kentucky. But the unique thing, Dave, is that the streaks from 1984 still goes on when Tennessee has a decent team. Tennessee still hasn't lost to Kentucky since 84 when in a year that they finished 500 or better during the regular season. So, you know, everybody talks about the 2011 loss to Joker Phillips in Kentucky and the 2017 loss that Butch Jones had, the 2020 loss that Jimmy Pruitt had. All three of those teams finished with losing records. Does anybody? I mean, this team is already clinched an at least 500 record. and they've beaten Florida. So all the historical data suggests there is not a chance in hell Kentucky pulls off this upset on Saturday.
No. And we're joined now by Tony Vitello, nice enough to join us. He is the head coach of your Tennessee Volunteers, national champions. And Tony, it's a pleasure to meet you. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It's been busy since the summer, really into the fall, but it's a good time to be on this campus as long as you don't mind walking around a little construction.
That's true. And part of that construction is Lindsey Nelson and the stadium there. I know a national championship, yes, that's a lot of dreams coming to fruition, but this was part of it too. How satisfying is it to see what's happening to your stadium, to Tennessee Stadium at Lindsey Nelson?
Yeah, it's been in bits so far. I mean, it all started with us, feeling like we had to kick up the work ethic thing and add in the artificial surface. So to see that go down it was kind of a symbolic thing, changing of the guard, so to speak. And then really it's been inch by inch, getting rid of bleachers, filling in a left field line area that had been used as parking by people literally inside our stadium. The porches going up because of the demand from fans. So it's been so fun to see inch by inch, but this is kind of a whole different animal. I mean, the steel that is above my head where I'm at now, at least outside the building, it gives you perspective on how big this thing is going to be once they're finally done with what is, a massive project compared to the others.
Tony, you guys just had a couple exhibition games. Great to have you on, by the way.
Thank you.
You guys beat Western Kentucky and Troy over the weekend. What are some things in the fall that you've already learned about this team as you go try to defend a national championship?
Well, I think it's very unique to have a high level of success the year before and keep people motivated. The last few champions, I think, have tried to tackle that issue as well. So we have different themes that I think are already built in and are healthy for us. But one unique one that showed up is these first-year players maybe are a little too respectful of the guys who are on the championship team. They watch them go on the run on TV and they get on campus, and instead of maybe ready to hook it up and take somebody's innings or take somebody's at-bats, maybe just a little too respectful. We had a joke one day, some of our guys calling an older player sir, and it's like, hey, we're all teammates here, and we're all going to have to come together in order to be the best version of this year's Vol team. And in order to do that, there's probably going to have to be some major contributions from freshmen and first-year players as well. So I do think that good chemistry is there that we had last year all year long, but I don't think it runs as deep as it did last year just yet. And a part of that is because it takes time and it takes years.
That makes me think of something. Tony, you're a leader of men. Since I'm old, should I make Caleb refer to me as sir?
I think in certain occasions it applies for sure.
Okay, so you win a national championship and everybody's congratulating you. You were a part of the Morgan Wallen walkout and all that stuff. But at what point did somebody just kind of out of left field, no pun intended, but did somebody congratulate you on a national championship that you would have never even thought that they were aware of it? Was there somebody along the way where you're like, wow, that's pretty cool?
I think it was more, and it'd be fun to go through the phone and have a better answer for you specifically for that question. But I think in general is interesting. If you're competitive, you have adversaries. It's just the way that it is, whether it be other coaches or kids who chose other programs or kids who left our program. And to have those people, come out and give you a sincere message, it's a kind of a different level of respect, because the cool thing about our fans, I feel, the SEC has fans that are nuts for sure, but I feel like ours are more positive, and it doesn't ever seem to get toxic around here. And I know people want to win, and if we incomplete a pass on Saturday, they'll be upset. But at other places, you can really feel the toxicity in the air if things are not going well. But our fans are very positive. So to hear from them, it makes sense, and it feels great, and it sounds great. I loved hearing all the stories. But I think just in general, hearing from people that normally are kind of seen as a nemesis, at least in uniform, it feels good. And again, it's kind of a little different level of respect.
Tony, this is kind of a two-parter I want to ask you, because you had to deal with this last year after what happened after you guys lost in 2022, and then you guys had your backs against the wall quite a few times last year during the tournament, and overcame it. Do you ever have to deal with the players with, I guess, the toxicity on campus of what people call battered Vol syndrome? Does that seep to the players sometimes when fans are like, oh my gosh, we're going to screw it up again?
Yeah, I think you've got to manage it, because in 2022, it was an interesting year. We went from, when we first arrived, some of the kids admittedly saying out loud that they didn't feel like they belonged in the SEC or were a true SEC team. And then we go to this other extreme where we're battling overconfidence at times from our guys. I mean, we were winning games by margins you shouldn't win SEC games by. And the season ends earlier and in poor fashion. So the fans are left with a kind of a salty taste in their mouth, or bittersweet. And then we start the next year in 2023, I'm referring to, with, quite frankly, a bad start. And it became an in-house battle of, what are parents talking about? What are agents talking about? What are fans and students talking about? Those are all things you have to manage in this day and age, especially if you're, at the peak of college baseball, which I think is our league, or at least, Power 4 or 5 or however many they want to come up with. It might be 3 tomorrow. So that stuff is just as important as getting in the cage and working on your swing. And one thing about last year's team compared to the Omaha team in 21, our first year in Omaha, they were so much more professional about the time in the locker room, the time with the media, the downtime, the autograph time, the community service. They were so much more diligent and professional how they went about it, as opposed to the first team. It kind of was a little bit distracting, and it was new, and it was time to keep celebrating because we're in Omaha. This team was there on a mission to go there and play well. And I think if you ask Simo and Burke, they'd say they were there only to win it.
Tony, I have a thought I want to throw at you, and you can tell me if it's crazy. Well, because I've been accused of that before.
Yeah, I got a feeling this is going to have at least a sprinkle of crazy, but let's see how much.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so what if they moved the college baseball schedule back just a little bit, so that it concluded around July 4th, when really there's not a lot of other sports out there competing for fans' attention? What would you make of that, and what would be the challenges of doing that?
Sure. I think, it makes a lot more sense for arm injuries. They're about to change the rules a little bit, but right now, if you want to talk about when our in-season practice starts, it's usually about January 25th. We start our season February 14th. That's next to insanity when it relates to dealing with $1 million arms and athletes with hamstrings and Dylan Cruz is an explosive athlete. You're talking about his arm and his hamstring health on top of trying to get your team prepared. So I think it would provide a more appropriate time to prepare and better weather on the front end. On the back end, I think you would be dealing with the crowds you see near the end of the year when the weather's great, students are out of school, baseball is kind of more in the air when the summer does roll around. So I kind of like that date. And I think you could still manage the summer leagues. I've heard other theories about, well, let's push basketball back, which I think makes a little bit of sense. Lengthen football because of the new playoff, push basketball a little bit, and therefore push baseball all the way to where it would play through August. And I'm fine with whatever. Just show us where to go, and we'll do our best. But I think the summer league thing, you're talking about the Cape Cod League. There's been movies about it. There's leagues all over the place. There's families that rely on salaries from working those leagues, families that like hosting. You're going to get a massive revolt from those people, and it'd be interesting how that would work out. But I think if we're done on July 4th, you've got redshirt players, JUCO players, other guys that could fill those leagues until, our season would be complete.
Yeah, I think a mutual friend of ours, John Wilkerson, makes an annual trip to the Cape Cod League. Actually,
yeah,
I think
as he should. It's something to see, and the crowds there are growing because of the transfer portal. Now that's a place college coaches go to scout. And I've been up there several times, but it's only been to watch baseball. I wouldn't mind going up there and actually enjoying the area sometime because it's beautiful.
Yeah, I might have to kill Dave on this show. No, I'm kidding, guys. But as those of us who cover all of the college sports, there is a 2-week window between the end of baseball season and SEC media days in football. And Dave is suggesting get rid of that window right now. It's like
you can multitask.
Tony, I want to talk about just the overall culture of the university right now because, Tennessee football is doing very well. Tennessee basketball was just in the Elite Eight. You guys all seem to have, and the Lady Vols just hired Kim Caldwell, who seems like she's really off to a decent start in terms of on the trail, getting players in. There seems to be a lot of camaraderie among everybody in the coaching staff that I honestly don't remember seeing. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, it's abnormal, and the easiest way to assess it is when friends with several assistant coaches too. They talk about the head coaches, getting along, and some of these assistants that have been in the game, regardless of their sport, for a long time, that have seen several other spots. I mean, I've been to 4 total. Some of these guys have been to 8 or 9 different, again, power whatever schools, and they talk about how this is just not normal. To have a head football coach that is willing to open up his facilities for other, teams to use at will for improvement, to help others with recruiting, to welcome me into his locker room, after a big win. And then there's a trickle down, and Coach Barnes truly is a mentor to me, but I think all the coaches, that are here, and Karen Weekly, her and Ralph are the ones that were holding their weight more than anybody for a little while there. If you want, just for brevity's sake, call it some lean years there. They've probably been the most successful program on this campus the last 2 decades. And Karen leads in her own way in meetings and on campus. And of course, the standards she sets for players too. So it's arm in arm around here, and it's everybody help each other out. And then also it's unspoken, but there's this vibe in the air, like, if you're not winning, you're not holding up your end of the bargain around here. So it's that kind of pressure, I think, is healthy pressure.
Tony, great stuff. We appreciate the time, and best of luck this upcoming season. As you know, it'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, you bet. Enjoy the rest of the World Series. Maybe it's competitive now. I had to get a little Chris Burke in there because he had a big playoff home run back in the day as well. So, but I appreciate you guys having us on, and including baseball this time of year.
Yeah, we love it. Thank you, Tony.
And Dave's a Yankee fan, so you can laugh at him. So
We'll see. Not over.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. Stranger things have happened, Caleb. Are you ruling out the Yankees?
I mean, the Yankees themselves are living proof that anybody can choke a 3-0 series lead.
The show represented by Banks and Jones. Yes, go ahead.
That Yankee team had A-Rod on it, though, so to be fair. And when A-Rod wasn't doing steroids and paying second baseman to give him his catcher signals, he was never good in the playoffs.
Yeah, never even heard that one. But
oh yeah,
okay.
Yeah, you didn't know about
the show
that?
Represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Coming up on the program this day in Tennessee sports history, and then an ugly X war, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, with Nico Iamaleava's father. And should you even DM players now? I mean, they're paid. We'll get into that. Stay tuned. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Step up your game in this 2024 F-150 4x4 Super Crew STX, $46,994. 24 Ford Expedition XLT, $59,978. 24 F-250 Crew Cab 4x4 STX, $57,888.
Local you trust, performance you can afford. Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
It's good to catch up with Tony Vitello. We certainly enjoyed that. Hit the like and subscribe button. Click the thumbs up. And yes, Tony has a future in broadcasting after coaching. I mean, he has a future if he wants to, probably as a soap opera actor if he would like to. It's a good-looking guy, Caleb. I don't know. What's the word? Handsomes up the show a little bit.
Oh, I have a pretty high average, but you're right. Once you're on, we get just below we're still above average because of me.
Yeah, is that true? Is that the case?
Yes, right. but Tony can still bring up the average somewhat with his average. So, it's
all right. This day in Tennessee sports history, before we get to a very pertinent topic, and that is Nico's dad getting into an X-war with a critic. And I like the fact that now you're a father. So I think you may see this a little bit differently than you did just a few months ago. But let's go ahead and dig into this day in Tennessee sports history. And it's brought to you by Double D Piping. What do you got, sir?
31 years ago today, Tennessee played one of the most ultimate revenge games I've ever seen. And by the way, I didn't see it. I was 5 years old, but that I know about it now. They, with Heath Schuler, did focus on revenge in welcoming South Carolina to Knoxville after South Carolina had beaten them by 1 point the year before. And they beat South Carolina 55-3 in a blowout. I think purposely trying to humiliate that quarterback, Steve Taneyhill, I think was his name, with the long hair.
Love Steve Taneyhill, by the way.
Yes. The irony of
the Theo Vaughn of South Carolina football.
He really was. The irony of it being a revenge game, though, is Tennessee was led by Philip Fulmer, who was involved in this being a revenge game. But I'm like, Fulmer could be thanking South Carolina for beating Tennessee the year before because that helped him get the head coaching job at Tennessee.
Yes, agreed. All right. So one of the ultimate revenge games, Steve Taneyhill, the Theo Vaughn of South Carolina football. Adam says Caleb should color his beard. That's what he's missing. Caleb, are you down? I see a little white in there. You down for coloring your beard?
My beard will go naturally white, guys, and you will not see me stop it. If it goes full white, I'm shaving, and I'm just going to... The main reason I keep a beard, for the record, is it's a natural moisturizer, anti-aging substance. So once it looks white and I look too old, I'm just going to have to do lotion for the rest of my life because I'll be shaving.
Well, yeah, but they say by the same token that when you shave it naturally exfoliates. So I'm not sure I believe you there.
You're saying that shaving... You're saying shaving makes your skin worse?
No, it makes it better. It exfoliates. It cleans out the pores. That's why I have such beautiful skin.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. That's why. Well, you have to lotion with it, though, if you do that.
No, I can't stand lotion on my face. All right, let's take a look at the poll question on the YouTube. If we can throw that out there, Caleb, what do we got?
Okay, so by the way, someone said Hollywood Hogan, Hollywood Caleb. I would never sell out my wrestlers the way Hollywood Hogan did in the 1980s, but that's just me. Go back and look up to what he did to those guys. So, anyways, the poll question as of right now about Tennessee is this. And this was posed by Dave, guys, not me. Is it okay to DM college players and families? No, just classless, 77%.
Well,
Yes,
give
they're
me
paid,
that again. You give
21%.
me the answers.
Oh,
You're not
sorry.
teasing it forward. Stay in Tennessee football history brought to you by Double D Piping. We'll get into what happened with Nico Iamaleava's father and some classless behavior brought to you by Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
All right, Caleb, let's get to our poll question, and that'll set us up for our debate here. And I got a feeling that I'm going to be in the minority, but I've been in the minority for quite a few times in my career. All right, Caleb, what do you got?
Is it okay to DM college players and families? Yes, they're paid. No, just classless.
Okay, so what's the what are the early returns on that?
15% say yes, 85% say no.
15%? That surprises me. All right, so share with me what happened with Nico Iamaleava's father.
Okay. So he called out a former Tennessee walk-on and a former coach of the Waverly High School offensive line. By the name
Nico's dad did?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And for those curious, Waverly High School is in Waverly, Tennessee, which is in Humphreys County, which is between Memphis and Nashville.
Wait, I'm sorry. Why is he calling these people out?
Because I'm getting there.
Okay.
Basically, he screenshotted a message that Clay Keaton DM'd his son on X, which basically said, "You dumb expletive." That's why I'm not showing the tweet, because it shows Clay Keaton allegedly sending Nico Iamaleava a message that said, "You dumb F word," and Nicholas Iamaleava responded on his own.
Is the father.
Nicholas is the father, on his own X account, saying, "Hey, Clay Keaton, Nico was busy helping UT beat Alabama. You should try the same with your high school team since you're 0-9 instead of jumping into kids' DMs. But here's the attention you was looking for. Shout out to all the real Vols fans. Go Big Orange." It gets deeper. Waverly football coach Randall Bolden told the Tennessean on Tuesday that Keaton actually has not been on the high school coaching staff this season. He coached with them last season and started a new job and was not back this season. Bolden said he tried to reach out to Keaton on Monday to have Keaton remove his ties to Waverly's football program because apparently Clay Keaton's ties are still with the Waverly football program on Twitter in his bio, even though he's no longer there. And so, yeah, this has just totally delved into now, like, where is Clay Keaton and who is he working for?
Okay. In and of itself, is it okay to DM players and DM their families? Just because they play for your university?
I don't have a problem with it because players can turn off the ability to DM them. So I think, that's kind of a feature you're allowed on Twitter. So, if you want to leave your ability to be DM'd open, I'm in the minority. I'm like, yeah, you're paid. You can be DM'd. I'm fine with that.
Caleb, that's so disappointing because it is ultimately incredibly classless. And maybe I'm with the majority here, but what's the point of bugging somebody? I mean, if you had their phone number, would you call them? I've reached out to some players and some media members via DM, but it's not hey, that article or that pass you just threw out there really was horrible. It has been as a request for the show. And I don't do it all the time. I think that social media is one in which you've got to respect a little bit of that, especially if you want the players to be open and honest. Now, you were talking to someone who has been blocked by Nico because I wrote a column saying I question whether or not he can be an elite quarterback. I still have those questions in my mind after the way he played in the second half against Alabama. They're not as strong. But no, I think it's just classless to reach out to players, because when you do so, most oftentimes as a fan, you're doing so. Why, Caleb? You're not DMing them, great job, we love you. You're DMing them because you're not happy and you maybe had a couple of bourbon drinks on a Saturday night.
Okay. But again, I am one of those where the content of the DM matters. I'm just and so if you DM somebody like, yes, you dumb F, I'm not a fan of that, but I'm not a fan of saying that to somebody, period. I don't think you should ever say you dumb F to somebody. Is that
okay?
fair?
Well, then let's clean it up a little bit. What if he just said, what were you thinking on that terrible throw, Nico?
I wouldn't have a problem with that.
That's none of his business. I mean, and it can be completely
ignorant.
It
is. It's absolutely the business of it. What you do
look at it pragmatically, Caleb. What if Nico has a bad experience at Tennessee? What if things go south? And we don't think that's going to be the case. But what if part of it happens to also be because you have fans that didn't treat him fairly? I can tell you that the Jonathan Crompton's family is still probably a bit bruised by the way they got treated by fans. It just serves your school no purpose. Let's look at it pragmatically, not the moral or classy thing to do. But when you start burning bridges, Tyler Bray's a great example, with your former players, and especially if you do this with commitments to other schools, like, oh, Tennessee never wanted you now that you've committed to Georgia, which is a common thing. Just pragmatically, it's stupid. You're just hurting your own program. You're making your own program look like trash.
Okay, but look, okay, we're talking about a bunch of things, because I don't see any difference between DMing and at that point just tweeting at somebody, honestly. Okay, if they're choosing to have their DMs open, they're choosing to have their DMs open. And so that's on them. And again, I don't like what Clay Keaton tweeted. I think what the content of the DM is the problem. And look, you're going to have fans.
You can't say that, because everybody has a different idea of what's acceptable. Don't we?
No, I mean, you dumb F is pretty, like, I don't think you need to do that. But at the same time, fans, where I was going to go with this was, honestly, should parents get involved in protecting their sons like this? Because I don't think they should. I don't think you can talk about Clay Keaton tweeting what he did, and he shouldn't have, and he was wrong, and it's kind of embarrassing and pathetic that he did it, and I'm with you on all those things. But I'll go a step further and say that I don't think Nico Iamaleava's dad needs to be tweeting what he said in response. I think that makes him look weak. Honestly, you don't do that on me. I think that makes Nico look weak. It's like, oh, daddy's coming to the rescue.
Okay. Let's say young Quincy Calhoun is 16 years old and he's the starting quarterback at local high school. And he gets a DM saying, you threw 3 interceptions against our arch rival. I hope you drop dead. Are you not going to have a reaction? Come on, Caleb.
I'm not going to publicly go at who DM'd him on Twitter. No, I'll have a reaction. I don't know what my reaction would be, but it'd be one of two things. If I think it's a legit threat, I'm going to the police, obviously, at that point. But if it's some troll on Twitter, I'm so bad on this, I shouldn't do this, but here's what I think I would tell Quincy. I'm dead serious. If I want that dude to get lit up, I'll tell Quincy what to tell him. I'm like, hey, Quincy, go tell him this. Go tell him he's fat and ugly. Make fun of his weight real quick. I would be so bad. I would be like, Quincy, make fun of his looks. Make fun of the way he talks. I wouldn't do it myself. I would teach Quincy how to be savage back, which is probably not a good trait either. But the right thing to do in that moment would be to determine whether or not to brush it off or whether or not to take the threat seriously. But no, I'm not going to respond to them on Twitter. No, I'm not going to do that.
Well, legit threats are different. I'm not talking about that. But I can tell you, for instance, Jonathan Crompton, there were people screaming and social media doing and all this, and that, I mean, there were death threats involved. And I know you've said you've kind of dispelled those before because people can go that route. I can tell you the family didn't want that out. And it was something that I reported at the time and based off another source. But yes, that's different. But that's my point, is where's the line drawn? You have your line wherever it might be. I'll give you a for instance. So you'll hear me say jackwagon a lot of the times. It's because I don't say jackass as much, because to me, that's kind of a curse word. And I always thought to myself, if I got my kids in the car, and I know broadcast is different now with YouTube and all the stuff that we do, but I understand there's not FCC regulations. If we wanted to, we could drop F-bombs left and right, but we all have a different level of decorum. And I think for you to say that is just life and you should deal with it, Caleb, I think that's unfair. I just think the other person started it. And I will go ahead and tell you that I can't promise that if I were in that situation, I wouldn't defend my son. I will give you an example. My daughter in middle school was being picked on by a group of girls. It was really hard for me not to go to the school and scare all of those little girls. But I thought in retrospect, that could be a felony.
The way you said that, it was really hard for me to not go scare a bunch of middle school girls.
Yes. So, I mean, exactly. But that's the first thing that goes through your head. So I didn't do it, but we did have the parent teacher conference. We had avenues to go through. What are they going to do here? What's Nico's dad going to do? Is he going to go to Josh Heupel and say, "Oh, sorry, Nico's got his feelings hurt. What can you do about it? Will you address it in your next press conference? That's 9.5 minutes."
You let it slide. Dave, Nico Iamaleava is not a 13-year-old girl, okay? Let's get that out of the way.
Okay.
He's a 19-year-old, 20-year-old paid athlete. Guess what? You got to let some stuff slide off those kids if you're their parents. You're not doing them any favors covering for them every time some negative thing comes toward them. And I'll give you guys a great example. Who remembers Arian Foster's mom jumping on the message boards at Tennessee? Who remembers that? I know some of y'all do on the chat board. Some of you guys have been following Tennessee for a while. Some of y'all know Arian Foster's mom was out here trying to get people banned from chat rooms for criticizing her son's fumbling back in the day. Okay? That was happening. It was lame. We all made fun of Arian Foster harder for it. Okay? And because, again, you're a college football athlete. At that point, you shouldn't want your parents to fight your battles. Dave, it's more embarrassing. Okay, and even how embarrassed would you be, Dave, if someone was coming at you and making fun of you and your mom got on Twitter and was like, "Y'all stop talking about him like that. You're terrible."
I will tell you, one time I was in a fight when I was, I guess, 12, 13. And I came home and told my mom, and I didn't win that fight. And I told my mom, she goes, "Yeah, I saw you out there." And I was like, "Well, you didn't come out and stop it?" She goes, "No, feel like you need to learn." And
your mom stopping it would have made you look worse.
Yeah, it probably, okay. So bank on it. The best comment was said by Adam, and it's brought to you by Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right, it's a great point by Adam. Do you guys have to go back and forth with your trolls in this chat? And you know, what was funny is when we started this long time ago, 2 years, 3 years? Yeah, I did interact more, especially if somebody had something to say negative. And he said, and Adam says, no, our listeners who like this show do it for you. That's a pretty good point. That's not a DM per se, but what if he just screenshot it and sent it out and didn't take a shot at the guy? Would that have been a better way to handle it?
No, I'm not a fan of it still. Parents, you got to stay out of it stuff on behalf of your kids. You want to fight on your own behalf, fine, but you don't fight on your kids' behalf once your kids are adults. For the record, for those who don't know, when Dave first wanted to bring me on, I gave Dave some warnings. I'm like, all right, Dave, I've gotten into some Twitter wars with very prominent Tennessee people, with this person, this person, this person. They all hate me, and I hate them, and I've sent them some savage shots. So they may never come on Dave's show, and Dave knows that. Did I not give you that warning, Dave, before you brought me on?
Yeah, and there's a certain one that maybe we want to have to talk about the Lady Vols that you and him may have to. We may have to have a group conversation, but that's a whole different. But I got your back, however you want to handle that moving forward. But I think you would be pretty good.
But yes, I've never asked. I had never asked anybody to fight my Twitter war battles for me. Now I am the typical Drake. What Drake makes fun of. I don't have trigger fingers. I just have Twitter fingers. Okay, but man, my Twitter fingers are good. And
Moki Mountain Red says, I miss all the porn bots. Well, let me give you the password to my Twitter, because I get like 6 of those a day in my DM.
Yes. You do, really?
Yes.
I
And
don't
I've
get any
never
in my
responded
DM.
to one. Well, there's a little place you can go. You can click on it and say hidden ones. And I mean, they are just, I stopped scrolling. There are dozens.
I gotta see what I've been sent. Elon Musk Twitter, man, they've been sending me some stuff.
Yeah.
But
and at least half of them are from your mom.
I'm gonna have my mom come and tweet in behalf of me on Twitter against Dave for that. That's what Nico and Aliava sounds like right now. Sorry.
That goes back to my Josh Ward days when we used to.
The lamest.
Caleb's mom is a saint.
For the record, Dave, tell me this wasn't lame one time. So one of my favorite rappers back in the day, T.I., he and Lil Flip were in a big beef back in like 2005. They were beefing with each other hard. Lil Flip's dad came out and addressed T.I. in a diss. That's lame if you're in a hip hop beef and your dad gets involved, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Lil Flip's dad got involved.
Yes. And Travis saying it's my algorithm. I've never clicked on a porn bot on Twitter.
I can honestly say, Travis, it's not the algorithm. It's not our algorithms. It's how Elon Musk has manipulated the algorithm, and he realizes that a lot of men like porn, so he's flooding their content with porn. It's honestly driving me crazy.
Yeah, I keep that stuff clean. I'm not saying I'm a saint, but I keep that stuff clean. Same for Facebook. Coming up on the program, or let's just go ahead and do that now if we don't mind. 5 balls to watch against Kentucky, and we'll go ahead and get to that right now. Coming up, Dylan Sampson, better than Ashton Gente, who is getting all kinds of Heisman talk. Yes, he's getting a ton of Heisman talk, and I don't know why Dylan Sampson isn't in the conversation for the Heisman. So let's go ahead and dive in to 5 balls to watch, and that is brought to you by our good friends at Neubert Collision Center. So what do we got, Caleb? Number 5 ball to watch against Kentucky is?
Number 5 ball to watch, and it came down to, because we don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback yet, whether it's Gavin Wimsatt, a more runner, or Brock Vandergriff, a drop back passer. I put Arian Carter on there because the line, like if Gavin Wimsatt's the starter, Jeremiah Thielander is going to be key. But regardless of who starts between Vandergriff or Wimsatt, Arian Carter is going to have to be key. Wimsatt, it'll be about containment, and with Vandergriff, he's going to have some opportunities as quite a few sacks. So I think that's why I put Arian Carter on there for number 5.
Okay. Arian Carter, to me, he's a known quantity. So define, if you can, for those that don't know, the balls to watch. I mean, are these ones you have questions about, or ones?
No,
that
these are the
game?
these are the players, the key players that will determine the game on Saturday. And a lot of times you see repeat offenders because some players are just that good that you need them, but there are different ones each weekend, and you'll see as we go up who's different each week.
Okay. What we got? Who's next?
Number 4, Dave. This is one of the craziest ones I've ever had because I've never done this I've never really put an offensive lineman on here, but Lance Hurd at left tackle is going to be crucial in this game. And I don't know if you guys know, but J.J. Weaver, Kentucky's outside linebacker, leads the team in sacks with 5. They actually are very good at rushing the passer. If Lance Hurd's starting at left tackle coming off this bye, he had better be much, much better than he's been.
Okay. Who's number 3 as we count them down?
Number 3 on the list is a man that you have all heard of by the name of Dylan Sampson. I wasn't going to put him on this list until this past week when Jarquez Hunter rushed for 200 and something yards on Kentucky. And I realized our defensive line had quit. I'm like, well, if he can do that, what can Dylan Sampson do?
That's hot.
All right.
Dave thinks Dylan Sampson's hot, by the way.
No, I don't think Dylan Sampson is hot. I don't. It's not what I was implying whatsoever. All right, who's up next there, Caleb?
All right, number 2 on this list is, believe it or not, Jermon McCoy. And Kentucky has thrown, I believe, at this point, 8 interceptions on the year, 9 interceptions. They have thrown 9 interceptions on the year. They've been very bad at protecting the football. Almost all of them, Dave, believe it or not, 7 of them have just gone to cornerbacks, which is weird because cornerbacks usually don't get the interception. Safeties do, as you know. But Kentucky's throwing them to cornerbacks, which I would guess suggests to me that Brock Vandergriff is throwing to guys who are well covered and taking a shot in the dark, right? That's usually how cornerbacks get interceptions, isn't it?
No, Caleb, that's fair. So number 1, is it Nico?
Nope. Number 1 is the guy that should be able to cash in on Kentucky having the worst pass protection in the history of pass protection. And I'm obviously talking about James Pierce.
Okay.
Yes, James Pierce should get 3 sacks in this game.
Okay, you surprised me a little bit. Here's what I did with our poll question. Go to on YouTube. The most key ball in Saturday's game, other than Nico, is Arian Carter, Lance Hurd, Dylan Sampson, Jermod McCoy. The answer is Lance Hurd. And
this game comes down to Lance Hurd, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if Lance Hurd plays average to above average, Tennessee wins easily to very easily. Okay, if he goes out there and struggles, he gives Kentucky a chance to win this game. And let me give you another factor in this game that's, I think, pretty unique. Would we agree that Mark Stoops is an elite defensive coach? Not head coach, but defensive coach.
Oh, yeah. I think he's very good. I think he's a very elite defensive coach.
Okay. Would we agree that he's coaching for his job?
Actually, maybe. Okay.
If you talk to Kentucky media, it's gotten pretty rough around there.
Really?
Yeah. So I think he is. So what were the common denominators in against teams earlier in the season? And I think it was Ollie Lane who pointed this out. You had Brent Venables, who was number 17, I believe, at the time, but he had to know that team wasn't very good. He had offensive line health issues. He had receiver health issues, and he had a quarterback issue that we didn't know about, but we figured it out in that game. And then you had Arkansas. So those 2 teams are coached by tough physical guys. Brent Venables, a defensive coach, Sam Pittman, an offensive line coach that knows how important winning the battle up front is. They also have in common that they're coaching for their jobs. Mark Stoops is coaching for his job. If he comes out there in a 3-down front and a multitude of blitzes, stunts, and twists like Arkansas and Oklahoma did, and if you want to go back to 2023 and even before that, Caleb's pointed out Austin Peay did this at one point. It was successful against Tennessee's offense. If they do that, the onus is 100% on Lance Hurd. He cannot get beat on the outs in the inside. He cannot be confused. He has to be healthy now, you would think, with the bye week. He is the most important player on the field on Saturday. And I don't even think second, including Nico, is close.
I mean, you might have a point, and I might have to rework this list. I'm not here to really debate you on this. You're talking me into it. And I know this is a debate show, but he also, again, we're talking, you've seen the right side of Kentucky's defensive line, though, too. Dave Wright. I mean, they're really good. That's their biggest strength. Mm-hmm. JJ Weaver in the ends over there. I mean, they can wreak havoc. So the pressure is going to be all on Lance Hurd to be able to make sure he maintains his block. Because if he's getting beat, that Dylan Sampson, who's going to have to stay back in pass pro sometimes and has done a good job picking up blitzes, that puts more on him. And Dave, where they're in real trouble is when Deshaun Bishop's in the game, because Deshaun Bishop's not going to pick up some of those blitzes. So, I mean, he will, but he's just not big enough to block.
All right,
So-
our YouTube question is this. The poll question, the most key ball in Saturday's game other than Nico is Arian Carter, Lance Hurd, Dylan Sampson, Jermod McCoy. See how I did that, Caleb, without giving out the answer? The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. The results in 30 seconds. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Give me the answer to that poll question, Caleb. Where do we stand?
All right. So the most key Vol Saturday's game other than Nico, right now it's 50% Dylan Sampson, and it's rising up to 60% now. So people are disagreeing with us, Dave. But Lance Hurd second at 25%. Arian Carter 17%. Jermon McCoy 0%. I understand the Jermon McCoy point. I think some people think that Kentucky's just not going to be able to pass the ball at all. So that Jermon McCoy in that way may not matter.
How many players can lose this game for Tennessee? Think about that for just a second. Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. HOOK for 10% off. I got Lance Hurd. I got Nico. If you want to say Dylan Sampson fumbles 3 times, yes, but that's not in the realm of possibility.
We're talking about realistically not performing expectations. Basically.
Somebody that just hasn't shown up at some point this year. I think those are the only two, because you might say safety. The safety position gives up a big play or two, but Will Brooks has been good.
Jeremiah Thielander could lose this game for Tennessee if Kentucky starts Gavin Wimsatt, because if Jeremiah Thielander struggles to be in position consistently the way he was against Florida, Gavin Wimsatt's a running quarterback, and that could add an element that Tennessee's just not ready for.
Not a bad one. Hound Dogs of Knoxville champions look good in orange. HDKnoxville.com. HDKnoxville.com. Also want to remind you that Peak IV Hydration in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live your life to the fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. PeakIVHydration.com. PeakIVHydration.com. Back with you in just 2 minutes. Why Dylan Sampson is better than Ashton Gente. The Last Look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, BanksandJones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
2024 F-150 4x4 Super Crew STX, $46,994. 24 Ford Expedition XLT, $59,978. 24 F-250 Crew Cab 4x4 STX, $57,888.
Local you trust, performance you can afford.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
I love our listeners and those in the message board. Richard says, I hope Rick Terry Jewelry enjoys $2,000 I dropped on jewelry. Well, thank you for supporting our sponsors. Richard, I hope you mentioned Off the Hook Sports. We'd greatly appreciate that. If not, just call him back. Say, hey, Rick, need to talk to you. Off Hook Sports, who sent me to you. We appreciate that. Support our sponsors. That's why we are all free. And Caleb, I want to get to a topic tomorrow. So make a mental note here. Adam says if Tennessee comes out flat against Kentucky, they probably aren't making the playoffs. Does Tennessee have to win with style in every game but Georgia? So we're going to discuss that tomorrow. But we've got a good one now because I think that there is a Tennessee football player that is being treated a bit unfairly. And I'm going to get to that right now. You will only be treated fairly at work trucks. All about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time, less back and forth trips, and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process, quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for work trucks, cargo vans, utility body trucks with an app, how to work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Trucks supplies vehicles to people just like you and get you back on the road tomorrow. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks, and that's a fact. Service industry, Work Trucks. Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have. Look at them. You need Work Trucks. Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham. Tell them that Off the Hook Sports sent you. Their entire inventory is on Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Don't waste your future and business on the wrong piece of equipment that burns your time. Work Trucks will find the perfect vehicle, fit it to a T. That's right. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. WorkTrucksLLC.com. All right. Can you pull up the odds, Caleb? Or I can. Heisman odds. Now, I want to remind you, as a Heisman voter, okay, and I'm not saying that to say, oh, well, look at me, I'm a Heisman voter. But I am telling you that I have not made one single conclusion about who will be in my top 3. And you only get 3 votes. So I don't know who 1, 2, or 3 is, and nobody's done enough to be in the top 3 to this point. You do not win the Heisman in October. You win it in November. That being said, it is heating up a little bit. So the guy that I didn't think would remain at the top has indeed remained at the top. Oregon quarterback Dylan Gabriel, according to BetMGM, is a plus 225. Miami quarterback Cam Ward, plus 275. Okay, Colorado wide receiver defensive back Travis Hunter, plus 400. He has no chance because a lot of the media is unfairly going to not like his coach. And I don't know if you saw this, but Deion Sanders came out and said, who cares about the Heisman? Well, yeah, maybe Travis did, but now you just completely submarined any opportunity he has to win it. He may be the best player in college football, but he has no chance to win it. because of some media members, I think that'll be a little bit petty. Then Ashton Jeanty at plus 425. I can go all the way down to Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe at plus 5,000. And guess who's not on there? Dylan Sampson. And I honestly just want to ask the question, why? Why is Dylan Sampson not among those considered to be eligible or to be able to win the Heisman? That's part one. And then part two, is there anything that he can do to change that?
So part one is it is stats based, and I think nowadays running backs that are in the Heisman race have to put up those Ashton Jeanty numbers. Look, I don't think Ashton Jeanty would be in the Heisman race if he's not just putting up insane numbers, he's putting up insane by insane standard numbers. Does that make sense? It's like, because he has now I'm going to get to his competition in a minute, but
okay, and I want to take a closer look at his numbers too. But go ahead.
Yes. But insane by insane standard numbers, Ashton Jeanty is setting records left and right. And one of the arguments that's being made, that's actually a fair one, is he's putting up way better numbers than Reggie Bush did in 2005. And Reggie Bush won the Heisman. There's a big stink that he should have gotten, that he never should have lost his Heisman. And
well, that's a bad comparison because he was more of an all-purpose back.
Yes, I agree. But the debate is overall, Reggie Bush's level of competition was hardly better than Ashton Jeanty's is now. I mean, Reggie Bush won the Heisman because what was Reggie Bush's Heisman moment in 2005, Dave? Do you remember?
Pushing Lindell White into the end zone?
No, it was the record-setting game they had against Fresno State.
Okay. Well,
Fresno State's a Mountain West team now. What conference is Boise State in? The Mountain West.
Right.
So the argument is, if you're going to do this for Reggie Bush, you can't hold it against Ashton Jeanty. That would be a fair argument. I just come on the other side that Reggie Bush never should have won that Heisman. Vince Young should have won that Heisman running away. Vince Young was by and large the best player in college football of the year, and I don't even think it was close.
That Reggie Bush award, you have to remember, this is before the two teams played in the national championship game. That Reggie Bush was one of the few times that it felt like the best the quarterback on the best team. You know what I mean? It almost felt, because you couldn't give it to Ken Dorsey, right? So
Ken Dorsey was 2001.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're saying. You couldn't give it
to Ken Dorsey. So you couldn't give it to, I mean, you got me confused now. Who's the quarterback with Lindell White and
Matt Leinart?
Okay, Matt Leinart. I guess you could give it to Matt Leinart.
But Matt Leinart got it the year before.
Right. Okay, so you couldn't give it to him because the year before.
Right.
But let's look for a second at Ashton Jeanty's numbers. Okay. Ashton Jeanty is averaging 196.5 yards per game in Boise State. Okay. And I want you to break down his competition. Now, what's more impressive? Now, that is 50 yards per game better than second place in the nation. Okay. Now, Dylan Sampson is averaging right at 120 yards per game in the SEC, which until Jarquez Hunter went off was about 25 yards per game better than anybody else in the SEC. Now it's about a dozen yards better than Hunter. So my question is to you, what's more impressive, dominating the SEC or dominating the group of bozo teams that Boise State has played?
Obviously dominating the SEC. So what you would have to do, and I'll break down the numbers real quick, is you would have to make the case for Jeanty over Sampson, you would have to say that Jeanty's numbers are so incredible that, put it this way, Dave, it's kind of like, you know, when you play NCAA football, have you ever just gone on easy mode to see how much you could win by?
Yes.
Sometimes, okay, if you go on easy mode, now you better win by 100, but if you do get credit for being able to win by 100, right? At that point.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. And so it's one of those where Ashton Jeanty is doing, yes, he has easy competition, but he's doing theoretically the max you could do against easy competition, theoretically. But I disagree. And I'm with you. What Dylan Sampson is doing is more impressive. Let me just give you, by easy competition standards, Ashton Jeanty is playing easy teams at an incredibly alarming rate. He has played one
easy, Caleb.
He's played six. He's played one FCS school, 6 FBS schools. So one of his yardage totals are against an FCS school. I think even if it's Tennessee, whoever you play an FCS school, you throw they shouldn't even count those stats. Is that fair at this point?
I'm completely fine with that. You should pull them all out, but they made the decision to include all stats, including bowl games, about 20 years ago because it sounded good for people to break records.
Exactly. So, all right. So there's that. The FBS team rankings and rush defense. 132, 116, 123, 64, and 63. That's 5 of the 6 FBS teams they've played, Dave, Ashton Jeanty. Now, this past weekend, they played UNLV, who was number 30 in rush defense. And Ashton Jeanty is getting a lot of credit for 128 yards. Want to know how many yards per carry Ashton Jeanty actually averaged against UNLV?
No, but I'm interested.
3.9. He's getting that's the only top 50 rush defense he's faced all year, and he couldn't average 4 yards a carry. That's got to be held against him, right?
You would think so. And I will tell you this too. When I watch Ashton Jeanty, and I've made this comparison before with Dylan Sampson, it to me is Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith. Jeanty is a little bit more of an electric runner, but I'll take the guy that maximizes every run, turns 5-yard blocking into 6 or 7 yards, turns 9-yard blocking into 11 or 12 yards, turns a no gain blocking because Lance Hurd let somebody come in on the inside B gap. He turns that into a 1-yard run. So I think Dylan Sampson will have a better future in the NFL than Ashton Jeanty. I will say this. When you watch them, the two backs, one looks like a power back that's a little small, and the other looks to me like an electric elusive back. That's not to say that's going to transfer to the NFL or that the Heisman should be based off that. I'm just throwing my eye test out there.
So what you're saying is, and I'm going to get back to Dylan Sampson and his competition too in a moment, but it kind of reminds me of like Jamal Lewis was like Barry Sanders and Travis Henry was like Emmitt Smith, right? Travis Henry wasn't as elusive, but he loved contact, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like if I had to go to war with Jamal Lewis or Travis Henry, I'm going to war with Travis Henry.
Yes, I agree.
But if I'm putting together a team on Madden, then I'm going to go with Jamal Lewis because I know that I can hold down that turbo button and I'm not personally afraid of contact.
That's a Bo Jackson type of that's that Tecmo Bowl, right? Game with Bo Jackson. Yeah.
I mean, I would rather go to war with Dylan Sampson than any other running back in the nation that I've seen this year. And I don't even see a really close second. And I include that with Jeanty. Listen, he's an electric runner. The records that he could break are unbelievable. When you start including Barry Sanders, those are the records he could break, that's unbelievable. And that deserves a lot of attention. But that doesn't mean you are the best running back in the nation. And that certainly doesn't mean you're the best player in the nation. Caleb, I would argue that aside from somebody doing something incredible, like it's happened at Alabama with the receiver who suddenly escapes me, won it, like might
Ryan
happen
Williams?
with go ahead.
Ryan Williams?
Yes.
No, you're talking about the Devontae Adams.
No,
Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
Devontae Smith.
Or if Jeanty does something incredible, it needs to be a quarterback award because they have more pressure on them than anybody else.
Okay, so let me throw this out to you further because there are going to be some peripheral fans. Again, and I want to insist this. He's played one top 50 team all year defensively, one top 50 rush defense all year, and he failed to average 4 yards a carry. That's elimination right there, isn't it, Dave? Like, if you're going to be running back and be special, you have to be special against at least the only bit of competition you ever face, don't you?
Totally agree.
So now let's bring up Dylan Sampson's numbers because the peripheral will be like, oh, well, Tennessee has played some bad rush defenses too. Well, they have. They played NC State, who's number 84 in rush yards per carry allowed. They played Kent State, who's number 133 in rush yards per carry allowed. Let me give you some other ones they played. Oklahoma, the number 4 ranked rush defense in the nation, 4th in fewest rush yards per carry allowed. Alabama, 32nd in fewest rush yards per carry allowed. Florida and Arkansas are both top 50. So Dylan Sampson's played 4 top 50 teams. And here's the key, Dave, and this is what we're not even talking about enough. Dylan Sampson's getting better as the year's going on. The competition's getting stiffer, and Dylan Sampson's still getting better. Did you know that over the weekend, he had 5.3 yards per carry 2 weekends ago against Alabama? 5.3 yards per carry, 26 carries for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was against a defense that's almost exactly the same stats-wise as UNLV's defense. By the way, that means Alabama's rush defense is way better, doesn't it? Given the fact that Alabama's playing better competition.
Yes.
And Dylan Sampson averaged 1.4 more yards per carry. So Dylan Sampson, against better competition, is doing significantly better. Dylan Sampson's worst game all year, by the way, is against Oklahoma. He had 24 carries for 92 yards. That's 3.8 yards per carry. That's 0.1 yard less than Genty's 3.9 yards per carry against UNLV. Well, Oklahoma's got the 4th ranked rush defense in the nation. UNLV's number 30. So again, when you adjust for competition, Dylan Sampson's actually outperforming Ashton Genty. And at that point, we got to ask the question, I'm kind of with you. Isn't Dylan Sampson better than Ashton Genty? And if we now, the fair point is, I think Ashton Genty hurt his Heisman chances last week by not balling against UNLV. But
okay, let me ask you this though: what's more impressive, 8.6 yards per carry against that Boise State schedule, which Ashton Genty has done? It's a nice number. Or 5.8 against SEC competition with a passing game that hasn't found itself, and you've been largely one-dimensional.
5.8. Particularly when Ashton Genty has padded his stats against, again, his 4 games, the 4 games in which he has averaged double-digit yard. Basically, he's padding his stats because of Georgia Southern, Portland State, Washington State, and Utah State, where in all of those games, Dave, he averaged 10 or more yards per carry. But that was against an FCS school and 3 FBS schools that are outside of the top 110 in rush yards allowed per carry.
Yep. Today's top comment comes from Adam. Sanders never really took the beating that some less elusive guys took, but if they're all in peak form, Sanders doesn't ensure a gain every carry. Let me go ahead and tell you, Barry Sanders is the most overrated player in the history of
this. Is the Cowboy fandom.
No, it's really not. It's really not. I would take Gerald Riggs Sr. over Barry Sanders in some offenses. Listen, that he set them up for a lot of not manageable third downs.
But Dave, can I ask you this question?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think Barry Sanders would have run a little bit harder if he felt that he had a team willing to, a franchise willing to give him a little more help to win?
I don't know. A dancer's a dancer.
I mean, it's just, you know, because I look at, I mean, I've seen this with running backs before. I've seen this with other players before. I mean, where it's why would I put my body on the line for, I mean, I'm seeing my Titans do it now. I think the defense is starting to quit on the team, and they should. I've encouraged them to quit on the team because you should quit on a franchise that won't help you. You know, this is where you see like a, you know, where you get back to a Dylan Sampson. I mean, you've covered Tennessee running backs, haven't you? That kind of, they were part of really bad teams, and they're like, why am I going to really risk my body for this team?
Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition at rickterryjewelry.com. Also, tomorrow we will be giving away this fantastic looking helmet. And let me reach back and get it. It's autographed by who? He's running across your screen. Dylan Sampson. It's a mini autographed helmet by Dylan Sampson. Thanks to our friends at Sports Treasures. Over 5 million sports treasures in North Knoxville for over 35 years. All you have to do, there's the QR code. Join Hooker's Corner for increased recruiting coverage, more interaction with me and Caleb Calhoun, and you will be registered to win that Dylan Sampson helmet, which we will give away on Friday. Also registered to win a Garmin watch, thanks to Rick Terry. Rick Terry's Great 8 Garmin Challenge, just $9.98 a month. When we hit 8,000 subscribers, we'll give away that Garmin. to one of our Hooker's Corner subscribers. So be a part of the program. We certainly appreciate that. And tomorrow we'll visit with one Will West. I want to remind you, the UPS store Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, wide range of products and services locally owned and operated. The link is right down below. And I would be remiss to say, if I haven't said so before, Asia Cafe. Treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine, handcrafted from guarded family recipes. 5 locations to choose from. AsiaCafe.org, and they have the Brazilian Cocoa Energy Booster Premix instant white coffee that is absolutely phenomenal. So, Caleb, if I ask you right now, you've got 3 spots for your Heisman voting list, poll, whatever you want to call it, but you're putting them in there. These are your votes, and it's Last Look, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Look at me, no contacts, no glasses. Who's your top 3? I'll tell you as a Heisman voter. Caleb will tell you as perhaps a future Heisman voter.
To visit cctis.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at cctis.com. Simply the best.
Who would be your top 3, Caleb?
Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Dylan Gabriel is my top 3 right now.
Okay. Do you know what my answer is?
What?
I'm not doing it. It is not November yet.
I mean, yes, that's fair. By the way, I have to address something because Dave is just an Emmitt Smith worshiper. He has a heart-shaped picture of Emmitt Smith underneath his bed every night, and once his wife goes to sleep, he pulls it out and he's like,
"What do I do with it then?" That's
what'd you say?
What do I do with it then?
But
Emmitt.
You know who did not hold Emmitt Smith in high regard?
Who?
Steve Spurrier. When Smith was debating whether or not to turn pro, Emmitt was really wanting to come back to Florida, but he was thinking about his future, and he was asking Spurrier how he would fit in the offense. And Spurrier basically finally at one point said, "Are you going to make your decision or not? Because I got to know what to do with this roster."
Okay, well, then do you think that Lane Kiffin didn't like Eric Berry? Because he told him to go.
Well, Lane Kiffin had Eric Berry for a year and loved him. Steve Spurrier, this was his first year at Florida. He never coached Emmitt Smith. And all he said was, this was when Steve Spurrier was new to the team. And he said, "Are you going to make your decision or not?"
Well, I'll give you this. Emmitt was far better because of the team around him than just his talent. I'll give you that, hands down. But I think there are a lot of backs that would have been more productive in the type of system that typically does better for running backs. Now, you can knock on the Lions all you want, but I think it's more than just that, Caleb. I think he was dancing around a lot. Barry Sanders was. Maybe he was unsure of the holes, whatever reason. I think Genty could be that type of back. Chattanooga Mortgage, congratulations. Your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Chat Mortgage with 2 T's, chatmortgage.com. And I thank them because they helped me improve my credit to make that home purchase. And Caleb, at the end of the day, if you had a bet on Sampson or Genty having a better pro career, who would you bet on?
Actually, Sampson, because Genty will get drafted higher, and running backs don't want to get drafted in bad situations in the NFL. The NFL, I mean, I hate to sound like cliche, but like the offensive line makes the run game is 90% of the run game in the NFL. I mean, it's even more in college. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's Sampson. And I don't know that Sampson won't get drafted higher because he's a better all-around back. But again, that's all running backs are kind of taken with a grain of salt, for lack of a better analogy, because of the way the NFL is structured.
And Dave, you know this because someone just brings it up. Like Herschel Walker probably was a better running back than Emmitt Smith, right? But the Cowboys had no offensive line in the 80s.
No, Herschel had no lateral.
He was vertical.
It's the biggest difference between him and Bo Jackson is Herschel straight ahead was maybe as fast and as good. Probably not. I'm halfway through Bo Jackson's book, but there was just no comparison when it came to opening up hips and going different ways. And Herschel was straight ahead, buddy. And if that was a brick wall in front of him, he was going to run into that brick wall and he wasn't going to sidestep it.
Like Bill Bates. Sorry.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
his vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Tomorrow on the program, we will visit with Will West from the Sports Animal, and we'll also get into discussion. If the Vols are flat against Kentucky, are they doomed in the college football playoff no matter what happens? Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney